tonight on First at 9 this Wednesday, the 10th of December 2025. Conditional release. Ex-Central Bank Governor Ajit Niwad Cabral granted conditional release from controversial Greek bond case. Ordered to repay the 184 million rupee loss caused to the government within 3 months. Race for impact. Evacuation red notices effective in 40 divisional secretariat divisions across Kandy, Kegol and Matale as monsoon rains cause more landslides. Death toll from cyclone Ditwa rises to 639. Over 1.8 million people affected nationwide. Aid pours in. Rebuilding Sri Lanka Fund secures 1.8 billion rupees in international donations to support disaster recovery. Paradise Island. 50,000 tourists visit Sri Lanka in December despite Ditwa destruction. Annual arrivals cross 2.1 million.
Kalin baby so rupial 90කට. Kalin baby podi හැමෝටමයි.
This is Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9 on Sri Lanka's premium news provider, Derana News Channel. I'm Tarindu Mahendra, joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and around the world. We begin with your top story this evening. Former Central Bank Governor Ajit Niwad Cabral was granted a conditional release today after the Bribery Commission withdrew the indictments against him over the Greek bond investment that caused a 1.84 billion rupee loss to the government. As part of the withdrawal conditions, the former Central Bank Governor is required to repay the 1.84 billion rupees to the Central Bank within 3 months. Meanwhile, indictments against the remaining 3 accused were withdrawn and they were discharged from the case. Indictments were filed before the Colombo High Court against 4 individuals, including former Central Bank Governor Ajit Niwad Cabral, over the controversial investment in Greek bonds and the resulting loss to the government. The prosecution alleged that the accused caused a loss exceeding 1.84 billion rupees to the government of Sri Lanka by purchasing treasury bonds issued by the Greek government during Greece's economic crisis in 2011. Although indictments were first filed in March 2024, the court released Cabral from the charges, noting that the prosecution's case was inconsistent with the provisions of the Anti-Corruption Act. Subsequently, in August 2024, the Bribery Commission refiled the indictments with the Colombo High Court against former Central Bank Governor Ajit Niwad Cabral, former Deputy Governor Dharmasena Deerasinghe and Assistant Governors Don Vasantha Ananda Silva and M.A. Karunaratne. Subsequently, the first accused, Ajit Niwad Cabral, requested the Commission to investigate allegations of bribery or corruption to withdraw the indictments against him under Section 67(1) of the Anti-Corruption Act, which authorizes the Director General of the Commission to withdraw indictments under specific conditions. When the case was taken up today, the Director General of the Bribery Commission informed court that the charges would be withdrawn following a review and with the approval of the Commission members as per Section 67(2) of the Anti-Corruption Act and subject to conditions under Section 67(3). Section 67(3) of the Anti-Corruption Act No. 9 of 2023 allows the Director General to impose conditions for withdrawal, including publicly expressing remorse and apology before the High Court and providing reparation to victims within a stipulated period as determined by the Commission. Under these withdrawal conditions, the accused must reimburse the loss of 1.843 billion rupees to the Central Bank of Sri Lanka within 3 months from today. If they fail to meet these conditions, the Director General is required to file fresh indictments against the accused on the same charges in accordance with Section 67(5) of the Anti-Corruption Act. After considering the submissions, the court granted a conditional release to former Central Bank Governor Ajit Niwad Cabral under Section 67 of the Anti-Corruption Act. Additionally, the indictments against the other 3 accused were withdrawn and they were discharged from the case in accordance with Section 194(3) of the Code of Criminal Procedure Act.
දවටනේ නියම මිල සඳහන් ස්විස්ටෙක් නිෂ්පාදන මිලදී ගන්න. ස්විස්ටෙක් ගන්න ඕන හොඳම තීරණය.
Following the activation of the northeast monsoon, many areas of the island experienced rainfall yesterday, with landslides reported in the Megaha Kivula and Morahela areas. No loss of life has been reported. The Irrigation Department stated that although river water levels have risen slightly due to the rainfall, there is currently no risk of flooding.
Although the impact of Cyclone Ditwa has receded from Sri Lanka, the northeast monsoon is now established across the island. Several areas received rainfall yesterday. In this context, a landslide occurred this morning in the Bogahapatana area of Megahakula, Morahala. Although evacuation warnings were issued to the area due to the risk of landslides, reports indicate that several families had not reached safety centres when the landslide occurred. Fortunately, no loss of life was reported. Against this backdrop, the National Building Research Organisation has further extended the red notices regarding landslides issued to residents of 40 Divisional Secretariat divisions in Kandy, Kegol, Kurunagala and Matale districts.
We kindly request that people move to safer locations. If you observe any signs of a landslide, evacuate immediately. Due to the continuous rainfall, the soil is saturated with water, increasing the risk of landslides in the coming days.
With continuous rainfall, the sluice gates of several reservoirs have been opened. The Irrigation Department states that although river water levels have risen slightly due to rainfall, no area is currently at risk of flooding.
Water levels have not risen to concerning levels due to the current rainfall. Even if water levels increase in rivers, there is no risk of flooding at this time.
The Department of Meteorology forecasts showers or thunder showers at times in the northern, north central, eastern, central and Uva provinces within the next 24 hours. Heavy rainfall exceeding 100 millimeters may occur in some locations in the northern, north central and eastern provinces. Meanwhile, with northeast monsoon conditions active, a disaster preparedness meeting was held at the Disaster Management Centre today with the participation of relevant stakeholders.
Based on preliminary data, we have identified approximately 14 districts that may be affected by the northeast monsoon rains. We urge the public to remain vigilant and to call 117 in case of any emergency.
Over 100 acres belonging to 80 farming families in the Vijayarajapura village in Polonnaruwa have been destroyed by floods caused by Cyclone Ditwa. Sand and stones have piled up in the paddy fields. Severe damage has also been caused to paddy fields in the Hungamala area in Dehiyathakandya due to sand deposition. In this context, the Geological Survey and Mines Bureau issued instructions regarding the removal of soil and sand accumulated in paddy fields.
We have granted permission for landowners to collect and store sand on their land. If the land is a paddy land, it should be stored in a suitable area outside that property. Farmers who wish to sell this sand may do so under proper license.
In the Pallekanda village in Badulla, which was recently hit by a landslide, the only access road has been completely destroyed and numerous properties including houses have sustained severe damage. In the Ambokka village in Pallepole Matala, landslide affected areas are still covered in soil and debris removal is yet to be completed. The landslide claimed the lives of 7 members of the same family whose remains were recovered with the assistance of a search dog. Residents currently living in the area have requested geological officers to monitor the situation and advise whether it is safe to return. Adverse weather conditions affected Dialog Asiata PLC's fibre backbones and telephone towers, which have now been restored.
Due to disaster caused by Cyclone Ditwa, approximately 2,000 of our 6,000 towers were damaged and our fibre network was also affected. We have now restored the entire network and can successfully provide service to the country's 20 million population.
Toll from the disaster has risen to 639, with 193 people still reported missing. A total of 1,814,421 people belonging to 524,678 families have been affected.
The National Transport Commission announces that with passenger bus services now running on normal routes, there is no justification for the higher fares previously charged on alternate routes. Accordingly, passengers are urged to report any overcharging to the 1955 hotline. Meanwhile, repair work on damaged infrastructure continues across the island.
Relief efforts by the Sri Lanka Air Force reached affected communities in the disaster-struck Nildandahinna area in Valapane. Similarly, the Air Force conducted clean-up operations at religious sites in Muruthanna in Kochikade and established a special medical clinic in Batuatta area in Passara. In an effort to restore infrastructure damaged by the disaster, the Indian Army Corps of Engineers has begun assembling a Bailey Bridge in Kilnochchi. India is expected to supply several more Bailey bridges in the coming days. Meanwhile, during a government media conference yesterday, authorities outlined the progress of operations to restore transport infrastructure.
All roads have been reopened for transport except Colombo-Nuwara main road. Bus services via the Mirigame Expressway have resumed normal operations and buses on the Colombo-Kandy route are now travelling through Kadugannawa. Several by roads along the Kandy route have also been cleared, allowing a minor adjustment to bus fares. Fares have now been fully restored to normal rates. We urge the public to report any overcharging to our hotline 1955. At present, the only alternate route inactive use remains the Colombo-Nuwara road via Hatton. All expressway services have also returned to normal. A total of 315 roads under RDA supervision were closed due to the recent disaster. Of these, 288 sections of roads have now been reopened for traffic. Additionally, 15 of the 40 damaged bridges have been repaired and made accessible. The Polgahawela-Kegol road has also been reopened for light vehicles and passenger transport between 6 am and 6 pm.
Meanwhile, the General Manager of Railways provided an update on the continuation of railway operations.
Office train services have resumed on the Rambukkana, Kurunegala and Polgahawela routes. These lines are currently open exclusive for office commuters. In the evenings, return services from Colombo to Rambukkana, Kurunegala and Polgahawela will operate as scheduled. Additionally, 10 extra train journeys have been reinstated. However, services to Batiklo, Trincomalee, the northern region and upcountry routes remain suspended.
The Water Supply and Drainage Board also provided an update on efforts to restore water supply.
Following the recent disasters, 156 water supply systems were damaged with several pumping stations fully submerged. Despite these challenges, water supply has been restored to approximately 90% of affected areas. The Galioya Alpitia water supply system is still under restoration with the facilities output at 50% capacity.
Health officials say there has not been a significant increase in the spread of communicable or non-communicable diseases since the disaster. However, the Health Promotion Bureau emphasizes that more attention should be paid to individual mental health. According to surveys conducted at relief centers, there is no indication of the spread of communicable diseases. We are also conducting assessments in hospitals and so far we have not identified any additional threats. There is a slight increase in cases of leptospirosis and dengue, but there is no upward trend at the moment. We are also monitoring diarrhea and dysentery and currently there is no increase in these illnesses.
ඒ රෝගවලත් විශේෂ වැඩිවීමක් මේ අවස්ථාවේදී අපිට නිරීක්ෂණය වෙන්නේ නැහැ.
ආපදාවක් පිටුපස තියෙන මානසික සෞඛ්‍ය බලපෑම ගැන
Usually the focus on mental health the following disaster tends to be low. The psychological impact caused by the destruction of property can persist for a long time even after those properties are restored. Therefore, mental health is a key area that we must pay attention to during a crisis like this.
මානසික සෞඛ්‍ය පැතිකඩ ගැන මීට වඩා වැඩි අවධානයක් දීම අත්‍යවශ්‍ය දෙයක්. විශේෂයෙන් මතක තබා ගන්න ඔබට මේ ව්‍යසනයෙන් පස්සේ.
Please remember that if you feel overwhelmed, hopeless or as though you cannot continue due to exhaustion following this crisis, there are red flags. It is a concerning situation and you need immediate support. Ignoring these signs can lead to long-term depressive states. Another vulnerable group is individuals who have previously suffered from mental health conditions. The best step is to seek support from a mental health practitioner. If you feel lost, you can call 1926, the National Mental Health Helpline, through which we will provide guidance and assistance.
යන්නේ කොහෙද කියලා හිතා ගන්න බැරි නම් 1926 ජාතික මානසික සෞඛ්‍ය උපකාරක සේවය අමතන්න අපි මඟ පෙන්වීමක් කරන්න.
30% discount on Apico Farm and Spring mattresses available at Apico Supercenter and Apico Daily.
Musa Phoenix Natal Fiesta November 13 සිට 16 දක්වා අනුරාධපුර ස්පොට්නික් ක්‍රීඩා පිටියේදී.
Welcome back to First at 9. The Rebuilding Sri Lanka Fund has so far received over 1.8 billion rupees worth of donations. Meanwhile, Sri Lanka's disaster relief efforts continue to receive assistance from both the international community and the local donors. An overnight Pirit chanting ceremony was held last evening at Gangarama Temple in Hunupitiya to dedicate merits to those who tragically perished during Cyclone Ditwa. During the ceremony, which was attended by Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amarasuriya and Minister of Buddha Sasana, Religious and Cultural Affairs Dr. Hinindu Sunil Senavi, several parties donated nearly 130 million rupees to the government for the restoration of religious sites damaged during the disaster. Meanwhile, the European Union has released 1.8 million euros in emergency assistance for Sri Lanka. This includes 500,000 euros channeled via the Disaster Response Emergency Fund of the International Federation of the Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies. Australia, meanwhile, partnered with the United Nations Population Fund to deliver urgent humanitarian assistance to protect women and girls affected by the disaster. The Australian government has made a $500,000 Australian donation to reinforce life-saving sexual and reproductive health services, gender-based violence referrals, and psychosocial support in 10 of the most affected districts. This initiative supports UNFPA's emergency appeal for $8.3 million and a one-year response plan for disaster-hit Sri Lanka. The French Development Agency has also pledged support for the government's program to provide relief to affected communities and rebuild Sri Lanka. French Ambassador Remy Lambert expressed this commitment yesterday during a meeting with Secretary to the President Dr. Nandika Sanatkumar Nayaka. Meanwhile, a flight carrying a 35 metric ton consignment of humanitarian aid dispatched by Russia arrived at Bandaranaike International Airport this afternoon. The consignment includes a mobile power station, vegetable oil, sugar, rice and tents.
Delivery of the Russian humanitarian aid to our friendly people of Sri Lanka affected by the damage caused by the cyclone. Hopefully it will be very helpful for our friends. It's both equipment and food. So we always stand with the people of Sri Lanka.
In this context, the Rebuilding Sri Lanka Fund has received 1.893 billion rupees worth of donations.
Rebuilding Sri Lanka may benefit tattwe tamai.
Presently, the Rebuilding Sri Lanka Fund has increased from 700 million to 1.893 billion rupees. This demonstrates the immediate commitment of local citizens, business people and expatriates to rebuild the nation. The majority of donations have come from the US, followed by Australia, England, Italy, France, Germany and South Korea. In total, around 39 countries have contributed to the fund. This reflects a positive response from all stakeholders towards the government's program to rebuild the country. All funds are being deposited into treasury accounts through a methodical system. A program to compensate property damages suffered by business people was conducted, led by Insurance Regulatory Commission with participation from all insurance companies. All firms unanimously stated that a program is already being prepared to efficiently compensate property damages and lives lost due to the disaster.
දේපල හානි සහ ජීවිත වෙනුවෙන් අවශ්‍ය කරන වන්දි ලබා දීම සඳහා තාමත් කඩිනම් ක්‍රමවේදයක් උදානම් කරලා තියෙන බව.
Minister of Industry and Entrepreneurship Development Sunil Handunethi urged state officials to adopt a practical approach in delivering disaster compensation. He made this statement during a meeting in Mathura yesterday.
The Mathura District Coordination Committee convened yesterday under the patronage of Minister of Industry and Entrepreneurship Development Sunil Handunethi. During the meeting, the minister emphasized that officials should adopt a practical approach when distributing aid and assistance.
The government is identifying businesses affected by the recent disasters and will provide compensation of 200,000 rupees to help them restore their infrastructure and resume normal operations. These funds are scheduled to be released within the week. District secretariats have been instructed to distribute and compensation through 3-member committees in each district, prioritizing those with verified damage estimates. The distribution process is guided by the principle that assistance should be based on actual need. Even the President has emphasized that decisions must reflect the ground realities. Cabinet ministers are overseeing the responsible allocation of these funds. Despite these assurances, some officials have struggled with traditional practices. For example, in Batik law, questions arose regarding compensation eligibility for a Grama Nilidhari officer whose residence was destroyed in the landslides. While a state employee, they are also citizen and entitled to receive the benefits. Officials are urged to proceed considerately in such cases.
The Derana Dialogue Disaster Relief Operation marks its 13th consecutive day of providing relief to people affected by the adverse weather. Today as well, contributors arrived at the Derana headquarters in Colombo with large quantities of essential supplies to be safely distributed to those in need. The students and teachers of Thurston College Colombo donated dry rations worth over 2.8 million rupees today. The collected supplies are being promptly delivered to communities displaced and left vulnerable by the disaster. Welcome back to First at 9. Sri Lanka recorded 50,222 tourist arrivals in the first 8 days of December despite the impact of Cyclone Ditwa. With that, Sri Lanka has attracted 2.1 million tourists for the year as of December 8th. According to data from the Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority, the highest number of tourist arrivals for the month of December so far was recorded on the 2nd with 8,178 tourists visiting the country. India continues to be Sri Lanka's top source market with 10,453 Indian tourists visiting so far, while the Russian Federation trails in second with 5,420 Russian tourist arrivals. A significant number of tourist arrivals were also recorded from Germany, the United Kingdom, China, Australia and Poland. The Colombo Bourse closed in positive territory today as a result of price gains in counters such as Colombo Dockyard, Hatton National Bank and Sampath Bank. The benchmark All Share Price Index gained 1.76% to close at 22,422.43, while the more liquid S&P Sri Lanka 20 increased by 1.33% to end the day at 6,084.06. Market turnover was 6.2 billion rupees. The capital goods sector was the highest contributor to market turnover, followed by the materials sector as the second highest contributor. Foreign participation in market activity remained at subdued levels, with foreigners closing as net sellers, offloading shares worth 668 million rupees. Up next, we have Dinuka Dharmasena from Capital Alliance in our next segment, Economic Outlook.
In the monetary sector, prime lending rates continue to increase. The weekly average weighted prime lending rate rose to 8.74%, while the average weighted call money rate decreased marginally to 7.94%. Market liquidity remained in a surplus, though it narrowed to approximately 97 billion rupees. Treasury yields remained broadly stable, with T-bill auctions experiencing a higher oversubscription rate of approximately 1.8 times. The rupee has depreciated 5.3% against the US dollar so far this year. At the Colombo Stock Exchange, the SPI declined 5.35% to close at 21,497 points, while the S&P SL20 fell 5.45% to 5,925 points last week.
That's all for tonight from First at 9. Thank you for joining. Stay safe and have a great night.